welcome to the 55th episode of Everyday Eternal. With me tonight, as usual, is our co-host Bob Wang.
Hello, hello.
And as a special guest tonight, Daniel Goetschel.
Hello.
And if you haven't been living under a rock on the past weekend, you know that Daniel had probably, I want to say, the biggest accomplishment of his Magic life on the weekend, playing in GP Niagara Falls in the US and winning the entire event, actually. Daniel, how do you feel about that?
It feels very good. Obviously, it felt, I've played actually, I know it's a generics thing whenever people always say, oh, I got really lucky. But when I would say that, I'm like, well, I play a lot of games of Magic and I usually don't feel like I got very lucky to win. But looking back, maybe it's just a blur. I'm like, there's so many stuff that's surreal. Like you ponder, you shuffle into the right one of, and, just stuff like that. But I guess there's a lot of other stuff going on in the game that leads to that state.
Yeah, people say, nobody ever wins anything big without, getting the necessary amount of luck. That's just the basic requirement. If you don't need the basic amount of luck that you need to win the tournament, you're not going to get anywhere. But then on top of that, your playstyle comes in, everything, your preparation, everything. It's just a basic requirement, which nobody always meets. But when you do meet it, then you can actually build on that and, you did, take down the tournament.
Yeah, and I want to point out that not only did Daniel win the event, he did not drop a single match. So he went 16-0. And as far as I can tell, this has been done, it's been done before, but not that many times. So maybe when the GPs were smaller, there were a couple of people who had gone 14-0. Since they got bigger, there's only maybe 3 or 4 other people who have gone something like 16-0. So that's an even crazier accomplishment. And it's definitely never been done in Legacy. So that's
So
crazy.
actually 17-0?
Well, so he had a bye, and he scooped his friend into top 8 as well. So in matches played, he was effectively 16-0.
Okay,
But I would
that's
say,
insane value. Go undefeated and scoop your friend to the top 8 and take down the event, dude.
yeah, my friend though, he was playing a pretty bad matchup for me, so I didn't actually selflessly scoop him in. It was well, he is a friend of mine, but so if I scoop him in, it when he's second and I'm first, so that way we wouldn't have to play until the top 8. He was playing, it was Edgar, was the 4-color Strifo back Faden deck, and I didn't test the matchup at all, but he's a really good player. The matchup seemed not very good, so if we played, it's a good chance I would have lost, but yeah. Still
But
good
if
value.
you get first and second place after Swiss, then you're guaranteed not to meet until the finals anyway, which probably would be the best possible outcome.
Yeah, that's why I scooped, because I didn't want to mess up the seeding at all. I didn't want to play him in the quarters or the semis or anything.
So it actually wasn't as selfless.
Yeah. So that's why I scooped. He explained it to me, and I was like, okay, yeah, I don't want to play until the finals, so I'll scoop. And also, the matchup was bad anyway. On top of that, so it's yeah, I scooped, but he probably would have beaten me, so that way, it sounds better.
Did LSV actually do that, where he went entirely undefeated at a GP? I know
he went 16-0 at a Pro Tour in the Swiss, but I don't think he won that Pro Tour. But it's still a record to this day.
Yeah, and I remember that. He lost, I think, in the semifinals or the finals to Gertson, the guy who does coverage. So I should know his name. I'm sorry.
Simon Gertson.
So, yeah, exactly. That's the guy. I'm pretty sure he lost to him. That's the one. But yeah, you went. I think people should really point that out even more, because that's an achievement for the ages, really.
Yeah, when I was at 12-0 and 13-0, I was really trying to get the vanity, of that undefeated.
So you don't even check the pairings. You sit just down on table.
Yeah, it was really funny. Round 10 or 11, I turned off my phone completely. Andreas Peterson, actually, he sent me the night before. He said I should just turn off my phone to not check social media, to not get distracted by anything. And I was just sitting at table 1 every round. It was kind of, it was definitely a feel good moment, I don't need to check pairings. I'm just at table 1 every round. I'm paired against
Did you definitely dream crush some people, right? Did
No.
your opponent round 14 want to draw and you're just no or anything
No,
like
well,
that?
he just said, so you're locked for top 8 anyway, huh? I'm like, yeah. But he still made top 8. And I was like, I didn't know him. It's not you're dream crushing, because if you beat them, somebody else is coming in. I mean, it's just that the person you're facing. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
but he still made top 8, so.
I agree with you. Usually what I would do in that kind of spot is if I'm undefeated, I'm playing no matter what, unless it's a friend, for example. If say I'm like 12-1 or 13-1, then I'll just like probably just take the draw. It's like I'll just take the
Yeah.
round off. But that's basically how I feel about it. If I'm
If
undefeated, I play. Otherwise, I'm fine with like a draw or whatever.
Yeah.
if it was like the
It,
13-year-old kid, I'd probably scoop. But sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
but I definitely agree with you because like people in that situation, they sometimes even feel entitled, and there was like even like a certain pro in the past who even wrote an article about that and how like the person who didn't scoop to them became like this pariah of the pro community, and that was like so much shit because it's not like a free thing you do and you like scoop somebody in because there's the other person who could actually play his way into the top 8 that way that you're like locking out by scooping. So it's not like a January plus EV play for like humanity or
Yeah,
whatever people try to frame it.
I think I actually might have helped Jerry me get in because he was eighth place, and apparently I knocked a lot of other people out. So I don't know exactly how it broke down, but I might have
Yeah,
helped him get
Jeremy
in.
kept us updated on Facebook, and like he was like, okay, I'm 12-2, and I think I can draw, and like that's so unheard of, like getting into top 8 of a GP at 12-2-1. But apparently, like how many people actually went to Niagara Falls? Like less than 1,000.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was like 960.
Oh, that's I guess given the circumstances, but overall it's still rather disappointing. Like Legacy
I think
GPs.
I think it was a low turnout for a GP, but it was because it was on Easter weekend and it was a place that was really hard to get to. Like basically you had to either fly to Toronto and drive, which is what all the international people did, or you could fly to like Buffalo, which is not cheap, and Niagara Falls is even more expensive than Buffalo. So it was a hard place to get to, and a lot of people had family obligations for Easter. Like it's a really big holiday over here. I don't know about Germany.
Easter, yeah, pretty much. Like we had a 4-day weekend, like 2 days of bank holiday and the weekend. So it's actually the longest weekend of the year. It's more than you get on Christmas. Like people
Wow.
don't care about the religious part of it, but very much about the getting days off work.
Sounds good to me.
So, Daniel, before we go deeper into your run and everything that happened in at the GP this weekend or the Magic Fest, I guess, tell us about yourself. Like, where are you from? How old are you? Like, what's your background? Not only as a Magic player, but like in life.
So right now I live in Toronto and I'm 18. I was born in New York, but when I was about two or a toddler, I moved. And then when I was like 12, my mom lives in LA, so I moved for a few years. So, but then when I was 16, I moved back to Toronto. So I started playing like Magic when I was in LA, and yeah.
So, what do you consider home? Like, would it be like Toronto, LA, or New York?
Well, I've definitely spent the most amount of time in Toronto, but I don't think if I was displaced, I would feel like very homesick, particularly.
And have you been traveling a lot, like as a child, or was it just a thing you? Because you said you actually started playing Magic on the West Coast in LA.
Yeah, so I would sometimes in the summer I would go back to my dad. I wouldn't say like traveled a lot, but I guess usually in the summer I would go somewhere sometimes. But yeah.
And would you say that basically? No, actually, let me put it this way. When did you start playing then? Because you said you're 18. That's like you sound very mature, but when you started playing, that can't be that long ago, right?
Yeah, I
At least
started
like for you probably it was, but like me being 33 now, I'm like, okay, what's 10 years? Come on.
so I started playing around right before Theros came out or at the end of Return to Ravnica. I remember that was sort of like the new set, like Theros was a new set or like Ravnica was coming to a close, so that's when I started to play.
So
But
that's like late 2013, early 2014, I
yeah, but I
think.
guess there was like a long amount of period where I was kind of playing and I didn't really know what I was doing, if that makes sense. Like at first, I had no idea how the game worked. I was trying to teach myself actually, and like
Okay.
I would just be like on tapped out and like making like bad mill deck lists. I didn't even know how the rules worked. It was kind of funny, and
So how did you actually get into the game then? What
so
was it that drew you into Magic?
so when I went to middle school or high school, well, at first it was middle school. There was a few kids I saw playing it, and it looked really cool because I was kind of looking for a game. Well, it's because my mom, she didn't really like video games very much, and I was sort of like a video game addict. I love like Dota 2 or Call of Duty or whatever. But so when I moved from my dad and I lived with her, I had to find stuff that was like not video games to do, and I'm like, okay, this looks really cool. And so I just started playing it and learning it, and I like sci-fi and fantasy a lot. So I was like, this looks really cool. I want to learn it, and then I kind of learned it, and that's how I got into it.
There's probably some marketing person at Wizards of the Coast like taking notes about everything. Okay, how do we get this guy into the game? And okay, so it's not a video game. Oh damn, we just released a new video game about Magic. uh, so you just like ended up like walking into a store and playing like a pre-release or like an FNM
No, no.
or
It was a long time before I went to well, it was probably at least half a year before I went to my first school. So I just walked up to those guys at school after like probably months or a few weeks of like, I don't know exactly because but maybe I was like watching coverage or just like reading all the cards and like just, it was really entertaining for me to just read the cards when I was new and like brew decks without knowing the rules. And then I guess I kind of got like one of those like battle box Theros decks that were like $20. I just showed up to school and I started playing with them and they were kind of helping me out, like learn the rules. They usually played EDH with each other, so they knew the rules pretty well because
you got
they're
it.
like, so they helped me out. And I remember the first time I went to a store was, I don't know why I wanted to get into it competitively, or I just saw like a cool like it said like turn 3 kill, turn 20. I didn't even really know what the formats were. Like they sounded really weird, modern, legacy, standard. Like I'm like that's like what is that? It just sounded very weird. But it said like infect kill, turn 3, like $20 deck. I'm like, wow, sounds so good. And then I was like, sounds like fake news, you know? So I started like playtesting it, and I'm like, wow, I'm killing on turn 3. Oh my god, this deck is broken. It's $20. So I ordered it. I'm like, nice, I got my broken deck. Time to go to the LGS. It was actually really funny. This was actually was when Fairies was unbanned because the first opponent I played was playing Bitter Blossom in Modern, and they like destroyed me with Hellstutter Sprite, and they were like, oh my god, this deck is so broken. So I don't know how they came to that conclusion against like a little kid was a infect mono black infect. But then I remember the second round they played against Jund, and I was like Tarmogoyf. I'm like, that's like the $200 card. Oh my god, like that's like my 2 years of pay for me at the point. And then the third round I beat another kid who was playing like mono green devotion. I'm like, nice, I'm destroying this guy because he was playing like some like other meme deck too. And then anyway, so then I went back to school. I'm like, okay, clearly that didn't work. I need to find a better approach. So I was trying to look at winning deck lists and stuff, and I saw Slippery Boggles by Reed Duke when he came second in the world because it had to be cheap. Like my budget was like $10 or something. So I looked at his Boggles deck. I'm like, okay, like if I don't play like Horizon Canopy, like Fetchlands, Daybreak Coronet, Spirit Dancer, this deck's pretty cheap. So I play like the next deck I built was like my Boggles decks with like 14 basic lands. It was like really bad, and then I brought that. Okay, I was kind of winning, and people were like looking annoyed at me when I would cast Slippery Boggle and stuff. And then I think after that I built Burn, and it was like $40 or $50. Like it was right when Eidolon came out when I built the deck, so it was actually like I did play like pre-releases and stuff. Like I used to play like every pre-release, but I was like had no idea what I was doing really. So yeah, I remember Burn was the first deck I actually started winning with, and my goal was just to 3-1. I would like 2-2 all the time. So I built like a Burn deck. It was like $40 or $50, and then I was starting to 2-2. And then when Treasure Cruise came out, um, also at this point I was playing Cockatrice a lot, and I was like playing all the Jeskai decks that I was like, wow, all these cards are like $20 each, and that's like how much my deck is and stuff. But when Treasure Cruise came out, I was like, okay, I can build like Blue Red Delver for like $60 or $80. So I built Blue Red Delver, and then I was like, the deck was like so good that I was actually able to win with it. And I won like my first like $50 store credit, and I could get like a Snapcaster Mage or something for the Blue Red Delver deck. But then by the end of it, I sort of like had won a lot of store credit, so I could sort of build more decks, and I was sort of like winning a bit more. And then I remember around when Splinter Twin at my shop, you could organize like cards to like you could sort like their inventory for them, and then they would give you store credit. And I did that until I got Splinter Twin, and then when I got Splinter Twin, somehow
the
I
deck
guess I
or the
was
card.
the whole deck.
Oh, the
Like it
whole
was
deck.
sort of like a more budget. Like I didn't have Scalding Tarns until like 2017 or 18 or something, but it like worked well enough. And then I guess when I was playing Twin, I started winning a lot more. I forget exactly when I was playing Magic Online, but when I was playing Twin, I built like a really cheap version. Well, actually, my first Magic Online deck was like Mono Green Stompy, but it was terrible. Then I tried Restore Balance because it was like 10 tickets or something. And then I just built like a 100 ticket Twin deck. And then playing the Twin deck, I was actually able to like go infinite on Moto. But before that, I was playing a lot on Cockatrice. They actually had money tournaments on Cockatrice sometimes, but I never got the paycheck. I actually like won one, but it's like free, so I didn't really mind. And like
Yeah,
you didn't
no,
have to pay entry. Sorry.
I can totally relate to that. Listening to everything you say, it's just like I remember as like a student, you're poor, you could never even dream of buying like a Tarmogoyf, like $100. Like where are you gonna get that kind of cash?
Yeah, I'm like that's like
And
two
so
years.
Yeah, it's crazy. So like I just like you, I like grew up playing Magic Workstation and Cockatrice on like magic-league.com. That was like the first site. It was like a free site where you could play tournaments and like you could hypothetically win money and stuff. I never did, but that just shows how much better you are. So it's kind of funny because it also sounds like the arena ground today. Like you're like slowly winning and like building your decks and making them better, and you just did that for like your whole life basically. That's funny.
Yeah, well, the whole time I was also playing EDH at my school, and like they were nice enough to let me proxy. Well, one of them was like kind of some people would be like, "Oh, proxies are disgusting," like the rich kids. Then they were like,
Yeah, the
"Whatever, we
rich
want to
kids.
play." But actually, it was fun because all my friends, the problem was they were way better at building decks than me. So I just couldn't build a deck on the same level. So they all agreed we would just get like those starter decks, so we could just play against each other on the same level. So that was when I was like, okay, this game's kind of fun when we're playing on the same level. And yeah, also one of my friends, I carpooled with him actually, and so we talk about Magic every day. And he played Affinity. He's actually a really good player. Like when I was at school, I was always impressed because he was like, like the end boss of the school, and he's just like naturally really good at it. So we always play Splinter Twin versus Affinity all the time. So that's also why when I play against Affinity, I have so much reps against that deck because I spent all that time playing that matchup. But anyway, I remember then as I was getting more competitive, I never really thought I was like a good player. Like I'd play Burn, but I wouldn't really expect to go better than like 3-3. Like I didn't think of myself as a good player. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm like, I don't even know, what's going on. I'm just playing and it's fun for some reason. But then when I was
That's
playing,
really wholesome. There's people who get into the game and they think they want to be the man, they want to crush people, and they get so angry when they lose. But if you're sitting there and you're like, I'm just having fun and I play the stack and I know I might not be the best in the world. That's just like something I enjoy so much
well,
when
it was
people are
also
not like full of themselves.
because the way I knew the game was skill intense. Because when I was new to the game, I'm like, okay, is this game about luck or skill? Well, I'm like, well, the same people always top eight these giant events obviously are like on a completely different level than me. I don't even know what. So I knew the game was skill intense, or everybody was cheating. But it seemed like people weren't really cheating, so it seemed like it would be more skill. But then what happened was when I was playing Twin, I was winning a lot of Splinter Twin mirrors. I'm like, okay, if I'm winning these Splinter Twin mirrors a lot, maybe I'm like sort of good at this. How can I make that happen in other matchups? So playing Splinter Twins, what sort of got me more into Magic, and I was like starting to get more serious, or not more serious, but I was like I can actually win. So I was like, what's going on that I'm winning? And actually, one of my first performances that was good. Also, I was going like infinite on Moto, sort of like not like infinite like in a good way, but I wasn't like losing money when I was playing at Magic Online. So I was pretty proud of that. And then there was a GP in like around 2016. It was the famous Steel Wall GP. If you haven't heard of it, I played Blue Tron basically, and I 9-0'd on day one with Steel Wall on my sideboard because I couldn't afford Spellskite. Or
Was
I
that
don't
your
remember.
first GP?
That was my first GP at. But basically, what
Whoa.
happened? So it was pretty nice, and I had no buys. And then after that, I was like, wow, maybe I could try and do it again. I ended up I started 10-0, but then I lost five in a row. But I actually don't think I like punted. Like round 11, I got a game loss because of Mark's sleeves. Because I was like a kid, so my sleeves were like from 10 years old. And then
That's amazing.
They were
I was,
falling apart, like they were even different, some of them.
I
yeah,
just
like
feel
twin.
like that guy who was like also 10-0 who like got a match win because you had Mark sleeves. That's just like so lucky.
Yeah, and then I played against Javier Dominguez, I think, and he was on Jund, and our games were like super close, but I remember like he just killed me. Also, one funny thing about Blue Tron is when you play it, you go like turn one Tron land, and your opponent like looks at you like they make like a huge sighing sound. They're like, ugh, and then I go Island, and they're like they just look so happy. It's like such a nice experience, and I'm like, yeah, I know I'm playing the bad Tron. But Javier was the only guy I think who ever did not do that. Like that's how I guess I knew he was good. Like he's not like it's gonna be easy now. But
He's
anyway,
actually one of the nicest guys in the game. Like I've
yeah.
gotten him to know a little bit better during the last season of the Legacy Premier League, and he's such a nice guy. Which is so funny because the first time I actually saw him, like in real life, was when he won the Legacy GP in Paris, where there was the incident where he accidentally drew like four cards of the Brainstorm and was actually investigated later on. And first of all, like I was like, oh my god, a cheater won the Legacy GP. But then like when you get to know him and like also the way that was resolved, you realize, oh wow, this I couldn't have been happier for anyone to win the Worlds a couple of years later.
Agree.
But
Javier's great.
yeah,
Yeah, and it was also funny. So after I played against those two Jund guys, I played against Merfolk. It was actually Yama Killer or Gal. He's a grinder, and he did really well at like a GP recently too. And he was playing Merfolk, which funnily enough is the worst matchup for Bluetron because none of your cards just interact with them. I almost won a game though. Um, But yeah, so then I kind of lost. Then I played against like Scape Shift and I like Multi 5, and then I played against like Big Tron. Like, what am I supposed to do in that matchup? So I went 10-0 to 10-5, but I'm like, okay, maybe I can try and reproduce that again. Though I remember I actually, the end of day one was like super intense. Like, the last round I was playing against Red Green Valakut, which is like a really tough matchup because how do you beat Valakut when your deck's all counter spells? But like, the last two rounds, so I played against Sam Pardee. He was on the Bantel Eldrazi, which also like you can't really beat when you're playing Blue Tron, but just like
It doesn't sound like you have many good matchups.
he got like mana screwed sort of, and I slammed a Sundering Titan. And like game one, I like ripped an Oblivion Stone, so that's how I beat Sam Party. Like game one, I had Academy Runes plus Oblivion Stone, which is like they're both one ofs, so that somehow happened. And then like and then against the Red Green Valakut guy, I just like drew my one of Sundering Titan both games. And then round 10 on the coverage, it was against Affinity guy, and anyway, so that was the first one. And then after that, I don't know. I just played Magic Online a lot and slowly improving over the years, and getting slightly better and better, I guess.
So what ended up actually drawing you into Legacy? Because right now we've heard a lot about the modern decks. And when you mentioned Blue-Red Delver, I wasn't sure whether you built the Legacy Blue-Red Delver or the modern Blue-Red Delver.
Well, for
But
$60, I would guess modern.
oh, that's a good point. So what caught you interested in like this format that's even more expensive than modern?
Well, it was on Cockatrice, so when I was a kid, I'm like, wow, I can play $1,000 decks for free. I just want to do that, on Cockatrice. But then also there was a store in Los Angeles called Nightwear, and they actually had
Legendary
like
Store.
they have like 15 decks you can borrow for free. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to play those cards. Also, they had big Staples tournaments. So, like if you win, you get like Misty Rain, like Tarmogoyfs or Dual Lands. So I was like, okay, I want to go to one of those. This would have probably been before the GP. This was probably like 2015-ish, like before. I was still probably a lot worse, like the first Legacy ones. I think the first deck I ever borrowed was Storm. Not a good idea. I remember feeling actually nauseous during the event. I goldfished it a lot on Cockatrice, which does not equal playing it. It was when I was playing Ill-Gotten Inheritance, but I actually remember I was feeling nauseous during the event, but I was like, man, I paid $20, I can't drop. So I was just like, it was a miserable experience. I think I went like 3-3 or 2-4 though. But I just like, yeah. So that was probably the first deck. Then the second deck I was trying to play was a lot of the local players were saying, oh yeah, like Rug's Tempo or like Rug's Canadian Thresh is like the best deck. I tried it at Goldfish on Cockatrice. I kept getting paired against S and Taxes, and since I was new to Legacy, I'm like, wow, how am I losing to this like unplayable deck? Why am I casting 1/1s and like what's this Stifle card do? It sucks. So I like that's why I guess for my whole life I dislike that deck, probably from my first experience. Then I tried Bug Shardless a lot, but I think I lost to like Merfolk, and I'm like, I don't know how to play this deck. I think Esper Blade was the first deck I had success with. I also tried Sneak and Show once, but it's when the new Salia was printed. It's actually kind of funny. The one that makes creatures enter tapped. My opponent cast it against me. I'm like, wow, this deck must be unplayable now because of that card or something. Because it like negated my sneak attack. But then I picked up like Shaheen Surani was playing Esper Blade. And I think I was also watching a lot of coverage because I was just trying to watch a lot. I watched like tons of coverage when I was new. Like I tried to watch all the Pro Tours and all that kind of stuff. And I saw Shaheen Surani's Esper Blade deck. I don't know why I thought it would be a good idea. This actually was a funny tournament. I think it's the first big win I had. I won like a dual land or something. But I actually one funny moment is in the second game I was playing against lands and I cast Telemine Performance. He has a Primeval Titan, but I have a Sensei's Divining Top. But so that was a fun experience. But I kind of like I don't even know what I was doing. Like I somehow managed to squeak my way to the top 8. Then in the top 8 in the first match, I had a bunch of warnings because with Sensei's Divining Top, I kept looking at 4 cards. It was by mistake. Like I didn't even know what I was doing, so it definitely wasn't angle shooting. Like I was just like grabbing 4 cards by mistake. Um, and we had like apparently like a 2.5 hour game, so the judges were like really pissed off at me. I already had sort of 3 warnings in that game. I got a game loss because I like looked at 4 cards too much. Although I was playing really dumb, like my opponent had a Jace Vryn's Prodigy and I had a Karakas, and I was just like didn't even know it was legendary, but I was like intuitioning for Lingering Souls. It was just like really dumb. So I move on to the quarters, and it was actually really funny. So I shuffle my deck and I drop my deck while I'm shuffling it, and I actually got DQ'd for that. But the thing was, in the top 4, you just got a dual land, so it didn't really matter at that point. Like it was just like a Trop versus a
Wait, why
Volcanic.
did you get DQ'd for dropping your deck on the
Because they
floor?
said it was my 4th warning. Well, I was playing as Mono Red Stumpy, and also it was funny because I was new. I was like, man, I don't even care I get DQ'd. I don't want to play against this dumb Mono Red deck. Like it's really scary. Like I didn't even know what was going on. Like really in Legacy. But anyway, and I was too like tired. Like it was like so like I'd played like 8 or 9 rounds with like this Sensei's Defining Top Intuition like Esper Lingering Souls deck. Like I was just so exhausted. I'm like finally I'm free, so I didn't even argue it or anything. But also the judges, yeah, they were really mad because apparently my like game in the top 8 was like 2 or 3 hours long, and it was just 2 matches too. Like I 2-0'd. Well, because I had a game loss, I guess. So that was the first one. And then anyway, I started getting a bit better because I was playing like those, trying to like get more dual lands, and I would win top eight them like I don't know, like okay amount. And one guy came up to me and he was kind of telling me like Magic series, like you should do this because of this, or you should approach because of that. So then I sort of leveled up a bit because of that. That's how I got into Legacy. And also I played it a lot on Cockatrice, I suppose. But like if I think back to how I was playing, I had no idea what I was doing. I don't even know what I was thinking when I was doing stuff.
So, when would you say actually did you get to the point where you realized, or did you realize yet, that you are probably better than the average guy you would meet in a legacy GP? Where did you actually like feel competent and confident in your performance?
Well, I was feeling really good when I was winning the twin mirrors, not like in general, but just for the exact twin mirrors. I always felt like very confident. Like I didn't lose them very much, and I was just like feeling very confident. I guess trying to think exactly. When I was going like infinite Magic Online, because I was like, well, my win rate just has to be like at least like reasonable. So then I was like, okay, I'm like pretty good, but it's like not like a level to like just win a GP, but I'm at the level where I'm not losing money when I'm playing the game, and I was just like satisfied with that. I'm like, I don't need to be much better than that. I can just
Yeah.
slowly improve from there.
Did you ever like, because to me it's interesting the way people come to the game and what their goals are. Did you try to like get on the pro tour, or did you want to like prove yourself in like modern legacy, or what was your main motivation? I guess entertainment first of all, like to most of us. But did you eventually like, because we never talked about standard? Has that never been a thing for you?
Well, no, I play a lot of standard now, but it was probably but when I was new, well, first of all, my goal for a long time was just to 3-1 at F&M because of like $20 of credit.
I'm
That's
loving it.
insane. I'm like, that's like a month of a paycheck. Like, my goal for a long time was to 3-1. And I would like 2-2 every week. And I'd be like 2-1. I remember like I'd be 2-1. I'm like, okay, like we got to try it. It was just like impossible. It was like this impossible mountain to climb. Then I never, then it was just sort of like I wanted to just like win what I was playing. Like I didn't want to go to big tournaments. I just wanted like value. So I was like, I go to Staples tournaments. I just want like value. I try and like see the Mac V. I try and play the dailies and just get value. So I didn't really care because I just wanted value. I didn't really want the pro tour for a long time. Like I would just like it was mostly value because I didn't have like many decks and stuff. It was just like probably around last summer because I used to be like, oh, I don't really want to queue for the pro tour. Like it's seems like a lot of effort. I don't really like PPTQs because they're bad value, so that's why I didn't really play them very much.
Wow.
I think I played like three or four in my life maybe, but that was just the last year. But then I think it was actually like last July I top four like a PTQ on like it was never a goal to like enter the pro tour of mine until like last July when I made top four of a Moto PTQ. That's when my elo got really high, and I was like on Magic Online, and I
How
was like
high are we talking?
like
Just out of interest.
2016 for the constructed rating.
Wow.
And
I've
then
never broken 2000.
it was just because I did well in two big events in a row, and they have like a big multiplier. So like I played like a mock prelim, and I went 7-1, and then I top four to PTQ, and I was also like on a winning streak in league. So it was just sort of that all added up. I've never hit that high again since then. Like, but
Once you hit like 1900, it gets really hard.
yeah, you basically just need to like hope you play premier events and randomly win. But basically, when I was so close to top fouring that PTQ, I was like, man, now I really want to get on the pro tour. Then I think in like August this year, after that I was basically like, okay, I'm gonna try and play PTQs as many as I can. Then I think in August I top aided with standard PTQ, and I actually had a really good performance. I like 2-0'd almost every match in the Swiss. I think I 2-1 like a couple. I lost one round that was really close. But then in the top eight, actually it was pretty brutal in the match. It was for me. It was like very so. I was like very far ahead. My opponent's like super dead on board. I have 11 life and they're playing mono red aggro, but they had like 10 lands and like two cards in hand. Then they go like kick fight with fire. I'm at 11 life. They go like kick fight with fire, deal 10 damage to you, bane fire you for one. And I was like, it was like going from like I think I'm moving to the top four of this PTQ to dead. But then after that, yeah, it was just like now I really want to like to redeem myself for that. Oh, also for my blue Tron GP since I started 9-0. I was like, I want to redeem, like, quote unquote, redeem that GP, so like I can do well at another one to make up for doing poorly at the first one. But looking back, it was mostly just like trying to get value, trying to like it was mostly the last year. Like since I was mostly like 16 or 15 when I was playing, like I wasn't really thinking that much. I was just like I like Magic cards, so I didn't really have a coherent goal. But then recently in the last year, I was like, well, I'd like to qualify for the Pro Tour because I think it would be fun, and I think I'm like getting better, so now I'm getting up at the level for that.
So now that you did qualify for your first PT or MC, if you will, what are your goals for this upcoming MC in Barcelona that you're gonna go
Oh,
to?
I should actually say one more thing about getting into Legacy. Just one more part of that story. I remember actually I used to play a lot of like Lantern at late 2016. I used to play a lot of Lantern Control and Magic Online, and at one point the deck spiked from like 200 tickets to 600 tickets. So I just sold the deck. It was like working well for me. I just sold the deck. Oh, actually, I have to add one more thing. Actually, how I one time when I was winning a lot, when Amulet Titan was a deck or Bloom Titan, it was like just such a broken deck, and I was playing that deck, so I had like absurdly high win rate just because it was a broken deck that was obviously banned. It was the Summer
When
Bloom
Summer
Titan
Bloom
deck.
was still legal.
Yeah, yeah. So in 2015, I was actually winning a lot of Magic Online with that deck. That's sort of how I got a lot of stuff on Magic Online. Um, like I wasn't playing it super well, but the deck was just so broken. Like you didn't need to play it that well to win that much. And so yeah, so then when that deck spiked, I'm like, okay, sweet. Now I can build Legacy on Moto because I love playing whatever. So I built Miracles, I think, around December of that time, and then I started like I think the challenges just started rolling out early 2017, and then I started like playing those, and they were really fun because I liked value. I'm like, wow, this is so great value. I don't have to even pay for a subway
I think that
ticket.
was like when we first started to play against you on Magic Online. You would be known as the Windswept Heath Miracles player.
I tell you the budget, that was when I was building the deck. I was like, I think it was yeah. So anyway, so yeah, that's why I was playing. That's why I played Legends Miracles at first because I couldn't get the Volcanic Islands and the Red Fetch lands because they were like 20 tickets or something each. So I just played the Legends one because it seemed okay in the mirror and I don't need a splash. So
So
anyway,
basically, story of your life is EV value value value.
That makes me wonder, before we continue, what do you actually do for a living or for education?
right now I'm just a student for art history. So yeah, which I guess is the opposite of value, but it's different when
Is
you're
it? It
playing
depends
Magic.
on how you much enjoy it.
Yeah, that's why I'm in it. It's because I do it because I enjoy it, not for that, money value. Like I don't have aspirations, to become a CEO of a art history thing or,
I don't even know what that would be. You
yeah,
could be
I
a
don't even,
curator of a museum.
yeah. So, but anyway, but what was the question you were asking before I interrupted you, Bob?
Oh yeah, kind of your goals for this upcoming Mythic Championship.
Well, actually, it's really cool. When I was playing at the GP against Edgar after like the GP ended, he said I could maybe test his team face to face, which would be really cool because it has like Nassif and a lot of other smart guys on it on the team too. So I don't know. I'll see how he said that yeah I could probably join it. I'll try not to say anything too stupid because it's but I do draft a lot, so my goal I don't know. I would just try and play my best though. I did hear I play those mocks things a lot. And some of the moto grinders, they love to say how the mocks are super tough, and like they always say like the mocks is harder than the pro tour. So if that's true, well at least I play the mocks a lot, so I could just pretend the mocks is the pro tour in a way. But like limited's really hard. I would say it's when you're playing chess and you just have infinite decisions, so you just play at random. It's pretty similar when you try and play sealed or draft, where you just are like, okay, I have infinite decisions, I have no idea what to do, so I'm just gonna try and like improve my game. I do play a lot of that format, but it's definitely very complicated. We're constructed. It's a lot, even though it can be hard, it's a lot more rigid in a way. So you have a lot more. You're guided a lot more and constructed by what to do. When you're playing sealed, they kind of drop you. Like I even try and watch Ben Stark and LSP videos. I watch it. I'm like, okay, I learned. I read the article, listen to limited resources. You drop me in a draft. I'm like, oh no, where's like mommy? You know,
I want to call LSV.
yeah, I'm like, what? It's like I just blank everything, but I'm slowly getting better at those. Like, anyway, I was actually thinking, I was thinking of asking for. I saw some coaching services, and I saw Corey Burkhardt. It was like $50, and he's a player I respect a lot because when I was playing a lot of Modern, he top aided like 3 GPs with Grixis Control in Modern, which as a Snapcaster Cryptic player, it's like absurd respect. So I was thinking to like maybe an hour session to draft just to see like what critiques he has of what I'm doing and etc.
Dude, honestly, you sound like a magic machine. Like you devour all the formats, limited, constructed, legacy, modern, standard. You sound like a juggernaut in the making. Like
Yeah,
10 years from now, we will
I
talk
just
about
play
you in the Hall of Fame.
I play a lot like I mean I have other hobbies too and stuff, but I just like to play a lot of Magic Online. Although it's because yeah, like I said, like I like EV. When I was playing Magic Online, you make money. So if you play, so I didn't really need to like do a part-time job because I could just do Magic Online. And then I was like, oh, like when I was like a kid, I'm like $20, that's absurd. So I would just like want to constantly improve so I could keep getting this $20 because that's like absurd paychecks for me at that point.
I like how when you won the GP, you're like, I have money now.
Yeah, because well, it's during the matches I forgot. Like I didn't even know why we were playing. Like my mind was such a blur. I just knew I really didn't want to lose, and like I didn't even know what I was playing for. Like if you enter my mind at that point, like I was just playing because like it was like if I lost I would have died or something, or I was like my arm was gonna fall off. And then when I won, I'm like, oh sweet, it's I guess I forgot we were just playing for fun, and I guess I we were just playing for money, I guess. But like when I was playing, like losing would have been like some like horrible. I don't. It's not that I was telling myself that, but like the way I probably was thinking and feeling, it's like it would just be so horrible. Like that's why I was probably making like loud sounds, like loud breathing sounds when something bad was happening, or I was going like, oh yeah. But yeah.
Is it
So
gonna
that was
be is it gonna be your first time in Europe?
well, since my dad is Swiss, I've been a couple times to Switzerland. So I've been to Europe before a few times, but
First time in Barcelona?
yeah, first time in Spain. Yeah.
Oh, it's to me like it's one of my top three most favorite cities in Europe. You're gonna like make sure to, if you can, stay a little longer, probably afterwards, and just like enjoy it because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I second that. It's probably like along with Prague, those are my two favorite cities to visit in Europe.
Why did you
Um,
come to Europe, Bob?
I've been there like a bunch of times actually. I
Really?
studied abroad in Paris, and then I did an internship in London too. So
Ah, okay. I had no idea. Oh yeah,
yeah,
you have a proper job now, right?
yeah. That is the nice thing is as soon as you have a proper job, you stop worrying about how much Magic cards cost, and you can just like build every deck you want in Legacy basically.
So, and speaking of, if you guys ever want to book a safari, hit me up. Anyway, Daniel, so now you do all of this. You probably wouldn't consider yourself like primarily a legacy player, because like my impression of you was like this is like a diehard legacy guy because we see you like in the legacy queues on Magic Online and doing well and all those numbers. But would you say that legacy is like your favorite format, or is it just like one of many formats that you play for DEV,
I
for
would
the money?
say the way it's kind of hard to think about games because sometimes I think sometimes like when I'm going through periods where I'm like losing a lot, I'm like, do I enjoy this game? Should I be playing it? If I get frustrated when I'm losing, and then I'm like, which formats do I enjoy? Well, I kind of like winning. So what does that mean for game design? Like a lot of people have opinions like this should be legal, this shouldn't be legal, and I'm like, I'm not a game designer. I don't even want to think about like what good or bad gameplay is. All I know is that so I find it very difficult to think about what I actually like and dislike. It's just very difficult to know like what actually makes a good experience or not, and like what makes a format high variance or low variance. I get frustrated when I wouldn't say I'm salty. Like maybe a couple years ago I would like say stuff, but now, well to get better, I had to just like not be like I wouldn't be salty to my opponents, but like maybe like once in a while I'd say something dumb in the chat, but like to actually get better you just have to stop being salty because it just wastes energy to improve. Actually, I'd say that's like one big thing, like just when now I just see it like if I like lose I just see, okay, I had a plan, it didn't come together, was it the best plan? Okay, it was, like there's nothing more you can do. But so when I was playing legacy, like testing for the GP, um I don't know. It depends at times. It's really hard to know like what good game design is because my view of how much I enjoy the format's so biased by if I'm winning or not. So it's really hard to know by like if I really like it. I mean, I do like playing Legacy. I like weird grindy games. I like the weird card pool. I love obviously casting Ponder and stuff. And Snapcaster Mage. So it's hard to tell. I love the experience of playing Stoneblade when my opponent goes City of Traders, and I'm like just like begging that their turn was like City of Traders Chalice, and my hand's just like a bunch of Stoneforge Mystics, and I'm like yes. But I don't know if it's my favorite format. I do like it. It's hard to say. I'd say I would generally like most formats. I usually like learning. Like I like the process of I'm playing a format. I'm like, okay, why am I losing? How can I improve it? And then I don't like formats where I find I do that and then I can't actually improve. So I like formats where you can like sort of be like, okay, why am I losing? How can I improve? And then you can actually improve. I think you can do that okay in Legacy, but it always depends like on the band season. So like different bands
Yeah.
have different seasons. But I would say like it's hard to pick a favorite. It usually, but I do enjoy it. Like the nice deep card pool is very nice. Like I usually just switch which formats I play all the time. So.
Dude,
So
you
how did
sound
you
so
like end up
incredibly.
on your deck for the tournament, and like what had you been testing like up to this point?
So basically, there's a friend of mine, Omar Belden, and he was just playing the deck a lot and winning like a lot with the deck. So we had a Team Trios event. I think it was like in February or something. It's just like a 1K local thing, and they're like, hey, do you want to play for fun? I'm like, sounds fun. So he was our legacy seed. I'm standard, and my other friend is modern. Tyler Nightingale was modern, and he was playing like this. We had a group chat for the team. We weren't very serious because it was just a 1K. So we're just like, what are you gonna play? If you want to chat, it was mostly none of us had standard cards really. So the group chat was mostly to get me to make sure I actually had a standard deck and wasn't gonna show up like an idiot. So he was like, I think I'll play Blue White Blade. It's kind of cool. I don't know. He also one thing about Omar, I have to say. So last year there was the team trios in Grand Prix Toronto, and we worked on Grixis Delver a lot, like Death Right era, and he went like X-1 at the Grand Prix. I mean, his team didn't do so well, but he was just like he picked up Legacy. He played Grixis Delver. He like told me like all these things. He's like sideboard Island, play Dead Gone over this, like. And he went X1, so I like my previous experience with him playing Legacy is like he like fixed all the issues, like does insane. So I was like, okay, um, I trust this. Also, he's like really smart. So I was like, okay, let's see what he's doing. So he's like, yeah, I think I'm gonna play Blue White Delver, and then I like raised Eric Landon's points, where he's like, well, or I guess many people make points like the Delver from Blue White Delver is like the least scary Delver in the world. Like the swords, they're the least scary swords to plowshares. The wastelands are the least scary wastelands. Those Delvers are the least Delvers. Like everything is the least scary. So he was like, okay, true, true. So I'll just play Blue White Stoneblade. So he shows up to the event, and I look over at his table, and he has Delvers on the board, and I'm like, wait, what's he doing? Like, it's not like he would betray. I was just like, he's playing Delvers. It's kind of weird because he agreed that they were really bad. Then after the event, I found out he went 8-0 at this event, by the way, beating like 3 Miracles players, which would be like, or maybe two or three, which would be like a bad matchup for Blue White Stoneblade, obviously, or Blue White Delver. It would be like atrocious matchup. And he said, no, I sideboarded my Delvers. And I'm like, whoa, what? So I tried it in a league. Basically, he said it was like for combo match. He said like Delver's like very good in some matchups and it's very bad in other matchups. And I want it like as a tool to combat certain matchups. I might be butchering what he said, but basically I just tried it in a league. And I went like 5-0 in my first league. So I'm like, okay, that was fun, I guess. So then I joined the challenge. I won the challenge. I'm like, okay, this was cool. But then I played in the showdown and I lost to two Tundra Mirrors. They were very close. It was actually against Rich Shea and Tommy Ashton, who are very good players. So I was kind of down on the deck, but oh no, and then there was the PTQ just like a week or 2 weeks ago, and I was tuning a lot. My deck was getting too big brained. Like I had Jace Vryn's Prodigy and the Monarch land. It was just like a very weird list. And basically what happened actually at PTQ was my decisions would get really difficult, and I was like like the chess thing, and I'm like, okay, I would make a decision at random and then I'd lose. I'm like, I need to simplify my deck. I can't play like you know like a 10,000 IQ deck, so I really had to simplify it. But then, so I was trying Blue Red Prowess because I'm like, okay, I can play this deck at 100%. I love to play this deck. It's fun, so like I won't be like tilted. So I was testing a lot of Blue Red Prowess, and that's like a deck I always sort of do okay with, but it's always my backup deck because it's like not great against combo, so I don't want to play it necessarily. But then I saw Omar Belden again. He won like a 1K or something with Esper Blade, and I was talking to him about it, and he's like, yeah, it's just pretty good. And I was like, okay, I'll try Blue White Blade. And I think I went like on Monday before the thing, I went like 14-1 in leagues with Blue White Blade. Also, here's what really got me on it. I kept trying Grixis brews, like Grixis Control, Grixis Pyromancer, Grixis Delver. I tried one with like 4 Bobs and 4 Terramanders, and they were just so bad in comparison to the Blue White Blade deck. I'm like, okay, maybe this deck isn't so bad. And then I was like, was running really hot in Modo, and I was like, okay, like this deck has like issues. It's not perfect, but I guess I'll just play it. It's also fun to play. And so that's sort of how I landed on the deck, if that makes sense. And also I had it together. Like it was getting kind of like that Monday was before like I had to leave in like 2 or 3 days, and I already had the deck mostly together. So I was like that or Blue Red Prowess basically. Actually, yeah, because Edgar Magalhaes, the guy he top 82, he messaged me and he's like, Daniel, if you want to play Grixis, I've been doing really well with the 4-color control deck, but I just didn't have enough time to test the deck. So that was another deck I would have slightly considered, but I just sort of had all the cards together. Well, if Hans Jacob is listening, he lent me a lot of cards. I mostly had all the cards together, and I decided to. So I played the deck, and it was like I'll just play the deck, and I played a lot. Like it was what I was playing the most, so I'm like I can play it well, I guess, and that's what I'll play. So that was sort of how I landed on it.
And so I was wondering whether you like did this thing that you ended up not doing, where you take all the decks in Legacy and you like test them against each other, like which nobody ever really does. But for you, was it kind of clear that you would be going into that direction, so you wouldn't like pick up or try and learn what you called like a 1000 IQ deck, like Storm or something where you need a lot of experience? Like, not saying that you like, I think you do need like, especially when it comes to like the grindier matchups, a lot of experience with Blue White Delver or Blue White Stoneblade as well. But did you feel you were like locked into that Stoneforge playstyle kind of? Did you like not consider other decks?
Well, it was sort of like I've played a lot of Miracles too. It was about I was a Miracles player for, sort of for a long time, and I actually played it at Eternal Weekends in November, and it was actually really funny. Me and Hans Jacob, it was like we both hate non-basic lands, so I had like one Tundra main, one Volcanic sideboard, like the ultimate. I don't want to get wastelanded, and basically I felt like the Miracles deck. I was trying to analyze why I was losing with it sometimes. And I felt like the Chalice decks just weren't very good matchups. People say it's okay. I'm like, being okay isn't good. Like, if I play against 5 Eldrazi decks and I go 3-2, like, that's going to be, that's not a good way to win a Grand Prix. I want to be excellent against Chalice decks. So basically, what I saw was, whenever I play these blue decks, you just weren't very good against Chalice. Even, well, you'd be like, okay, like, you could be 60% or 65 or 55, but that's not good enough to win a Grand Prix. But I saw, like, the Blue-White Stoneblade, it's basically the Ponder deck where you're actually good against Chalice decks. Funnily enough, I only played against one Chalice deck the whole weekend, but I found, like, it was really easy to lose to those decks, and I just didn't want to be caught off guard in the matchup.
I'm looking at your decklist right now. It seems to be rather straightforward. I mean, there's some inclusions you don't always see, like, for example, Spell Snare, which I think has been, like, making a very small comeback for almost 1 or 2 years now. Like, looking back, Spell Snare used to be, like, a mainstay in a lot of decks, like, 10 years ago. And also on the sideboard, I guess the card we were not trying to discuss too much is, like, Torment Script, which, for example, Eric Lenton recently made, like, a pretty big case for not playing Torment Script in blue decks, but that's of course heavily coming from the black-red reanimator perspective. Can you talk us a little bit about some of the choices you made in your deck? Like of course you committed a lot to Stoneforge Mystic, like with 4 copies, also 4 True Name Nemesis. Do you feel that those cards are pretty much like all your 4s are locked in, like Ponder, Brainstorm, Swords to Plowshares, Force of Will? I would guess, yeah, Force of Will is a 4 as well. It makes sense. Basically, what did you try to hedge against, except for Chalice, which you were also targeting with like 2 Council's Judgment in the main deck, and then also an Engineered Explosives in the sideboard, and another Disenchant. So, like you mentioned, you already have a lot of regular gameplay with like Stoneforge and True Name against Chalice, and also a lot of other things you can do. Like, where do you feel that your deck is vulnerable? Like, where do you hedge your bets a little bit?
It's really hard because one thing is I felt like Miracles was my worst matchup. And I remember I kept saying on like the Legacy Friends chat, Miracles is my worst matchup, and like all like Sam Rukas and people would disagree with me and they'd be like, no, no, no. So it's kind of like I don't actually really know what my worst matchups are because people seem to not think so. But so I would say the main flex spot in the main is the Vendilion. Most of the other cards are sort of basically sorted out. And the role I want that slot to do is be a sort of removal spell against Delver. Obviously, Vendilion's not very good at that, but sort of like if you look at the main deck, I actually beat a lot of Delver on the weekend, but game 1 is actually quite a scary matchup because if you look, there's not that many removal spells, and your threats are all clunky and not great at stabilizing. Like Stoneforge and True Name, they're obviously very good, but they're very vulnerable to Daze and like other stuff and like a Lightning Bolt. So against Delver, it's very easy to lose game 1 because your threats are clunky, you don't have a lot of removal, it can be hard to stabilize. Postboard, I have 2 Supreme Verdicts. So yeah, the main slot I kept like debating about was the Click. I was like, should it be an Explosives, a Councils, or a Verdict, or whatever? But then I just remembered when Jarvis was saying the Day 9 quote, if you don't know what to do, just kill them. And so I just played the Click, and it was good in the MCQ, so I'm like, okay, it was like randomly just very good in the MCQ. I was like, wow, this is impressive. I want to try it in this thing. For the 4 True Names thing, there's definitely the case, like if your hand is like 1 Click, 1 True Name, it's very awkward because like let's say you're playing a control deck and they have mana up, you'd obviously much rather just pass, play Click, then play True Name. But basically there's a lot of matchups where your game plan is just put Jitte on a True Name, versus like Walking Ballista decks, which is sort of like decks, like sort of like weird Chalice decks, and you just want True Name and you don't really have time to mess around.
Yeah, True Name is a really messed up card. Like, I've never really got to fully experience like how strong the card can sometimes be because like I usually play a lot of IFs. I also play other stuff, but especially over the last 2 years, a lot of IFs. And when I go and play other decks, for example like Maverick, and my opponent gets True Name down, that's when you actually realize how good the card is because you really don't interact with it, and you might actually like be slowly getting ahead on board. Like if your life total just like crumbles in front of True Name, it doesn't matter. and I can very much see why you want to run 4 copies of that. Like, obviously, I like the experience that you have, but it's just something that stood out to me because I think a lot of people actually don't run the full playset of it.
Yeah, it can be awkward in the sense that this deck is not a great true name deck in the sense that it has Swords to Plowshares, but where it really shines is with in combination with Stoneforge Mystic with the equipment. Because obviously, like, it's hard to beat down when you're swordsing your opponent, like firing off swords, but that it really shines with the equipment, and it's sort of like I play it like a sort of a combo deck where I'm just trying to get a equipment on a true name, though I wouldn't take that too literally. Like, you shouldn't just go crazy trying to do that in your games. But like in my head, like when I was playing against S and Taxes in the finals, I'm like, okay, goal, put Jitte on true name, stop like a Revoker, and then that's game. So
So one listener question I got for you. They didn't want me to mention their name, but why would you say you want to play this deck over Miracles?
Oh yeah, that was also I should answer the Tormod Crypt question. I just put a note here so I don't skip Tormod's Crypt, casually skipping over the
Analytical, I like it.
yeah. So the Miracles, it was basically so I feel better against Chalice decks. I don't think Miracles decks are necessarily bad against Chalice, but again, it's to win like my goal was like to win a Grand Prix, to like do as well as possible. I need to be actively favored, and I felt like I was playing a lot of depths. Like, I know Bob likes that deck for many months. And I felt like I just needed it, like, to be reasonable to win the event. I just had to be like very good against like those Chalice decks, and I felt like this was the under deck that was very strong against Chalice decks. And I was like, so that's sort of why I played it. I also thought the Blue Red Prowess deck was pretty good against the Chalice decks because you have Storm Chaser and like Smash, and I could play 4 True Name there too. But I felt like this deck was even better than that deck, because like this deck can just ignore Chalice on one more. Obviously, if you pick up this deck and you lose to Chalice, don't feel like you get ripped off. Like, Chalice is just very good, but I just compared to other decks, like, you don't lean on the cantrips. The cantrips are just there to help do your other clunky stuff. And then the Tormod Script question. So basically, like, I double queue a lot on Magic Online, or also like if you watch me like stream or ever play, like I go like too deep on lines. Like, I consider everything. I'm like, oh my god, how can I lose? How can I die? And when I play like Surgical, it just goes like overload. Like, it might sound weird, but I kind of like look at every target and I'm like, okay, and I'm making like silly arguments, but it's just like it's too overloaded. And then I mean, I don't end up usually going cute, but like Surgical just gets me tired because I actually do just like consider like most of the things and arguments and reasons, even though it sounds silly, I just can't stop it. So it is. Or are you trying to say something, Bob?
No, I mean, I was just thinking that's why we call you the Galaxy Brain, because you think about plays that nobody else even considers.
So yeah, and also like sometimes I'm double queuing, and also it's nerve. I'm not gonna lie, it's like nerve. You know when you're like trying to click on that Grizzlebrand and not mess it up, and also like if you've ever had the experience where you click on the Grizzlebrand and don't exile it, like that probably like it didn't actively bias, but it probably like my brain was kind of like remove Surgical.
That happened the first time I played Surgical. It was against Life from the Loam, and I was like, what the hell? Like, but luckily it was against Daryl, and he was just like, okay, I won't use it. But yeah, I didn't realize that was how the card worked, is that you could actually not click the card in the graveyard.
Yeah, so I always like sweat, like I was like double check, triple check.
That's why you don't play Surgical. It's too hard to misclick.
And also, yeah, when you're
to misclick.
when you're like clicking on like Grizzlebrand, it's like you're like trying to not hit the Lotus Petal in the swamp, and like you hope your finger doesn't crash. Like, I look behind, but nobody's creeping behind. Like, it's like a whole.
So
Whereas Tormod's Crypt, you just target your opponent, and it's like a much bigger box to target, right?
Yeah.
So you would say you like the C4 explosives more than the sniper rifle?
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah. And also, yeah, so there's also other reasons, but that's just like one thing that's like important. Like, sometimes like I don't try and double queue a lot, but sometimes I like double queue the Legacy Challenge with like the PTQ I'm doing, and it's just like Tormod's Crypt so much easier. I just play it, and then it's so much easier to use in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But also I think it's better against Dredge, which is like, people say, oh, it's so fringe, but I just think that deck's like very good. Obviously, it is very fringe, but I prefer not to lose to it when I play against it. I think it's better against Storm. I don't understand Storm that well, but I know the Storm players all definitely like hate it. Like, I played against 42 AD this weekend actually, and like when I played like Tormod's Crypt, I think he was like shaking his head and stuff. Like, man, what the hell is this coming up at me? And then Cyrus, he was also like, yeah, I don't like these Tormod's Crypts, like, because they're like good against me or something. Against Reanimator. Oh, sorry, Bob.
No, go ahead.
So against Reanimator, I know Eric disagrees because on the chat he's always mocking the Tormod's Crypts and stuff.
In the Legacy Friends chat.
Yeah, basically, I remember Eric was one time describing when he plays in real life when his opponents are shaking because they have Surgical hand. That's basically me. Like, when I have Surgical in hand, I'm shaking. Like, I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose. Like, so Tormod's Crypt's so much less stress in that way. But also, it's like I don't have that much. it's when I was playing the blue red prowess deck, for example. That's when I was playing. That's the first place I played Tormod's Crypt over Surgical. Because number one, it triggers prowess main phase, which is big, which is actually like a really big deal. But number two, you don't have relevant targets for your discard. Like you have Force of Will and that's it. So basically, they just like discard your hate card and then they go off, or they can play around it with like Zooms. I think one reason Eric thinks like Surgical so much better in the Tundra decks is because he's scared that if they Surgical his Grizzlebrands, then all his threats die to Plow, which I can see he's played a lot more black red, so maybe that's his experience. They Surgical Grizzlebrand and then all his threats just die to Plow. And also it can be worse in some situations where like they discard your Surgical, but then you have a Snapcaster, and if you have Tormods and they discard a Tormod, you can't use the Snapcaster. You can use the Surgical. But like basically like I do think it's quite powerful. It's like harder for them to play through. Like let's say they go like looting, discard like the Chancellor. Now you Surgical the Chancellor when they get to reanimate it, but now they still have the looting. Or like they can just like discard two creatures even, or they could like slowly entomb, or they could exhume two creatures. So there's definitely different pros and cons. But also people do play Cabal Therapy a lot, and they generally name Surgical, though it's kind of minor. I would say it's a big part of it is it's quite powerful against Dredge, and I think Dredge is like an extremely good deck that would not be a good matchup without it. Not a lot of people play it, but I do think it's like, I mean, I don't play it, so I don't know exactly, but it seems like Aurum and Elf Kid like just have absurd win rates with the deck. But maybe they're just very good players, so they'd win with whatever deck they play. But I would prefer not, like people, like it sounds like a joke when I say it's better against Dredge, but I would
It
prefer
is
not to
better
lose.
against Stretch. I mean, it depends on your deck, but like it gives you a one shot that buys you a lot of breathing room.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can see where Eric is coming from. I also see your argument. For example, if Black Red Reanimator is on a play and they have discard, it doesn't really matter whether you have like Surgical or Tormods, because even if you untap, you're not going to untap with Tormod Script or with Surgical. There's arguments going both ways, but I do understand. But I find it actually kind of, I hope endearing is the right word, that like you would say, okay, it's so complicated, I think I'm just going to opt for the Crypt, because I think a lot of people do feel like that. Like they feel if they are like super honest to themselves, they feel overwhelmed with the decisions that Legacy like presents them with, and they feel like, and I know that like from friends I play with, I would say I work with, no, I play with. They also sometimes tell me, this is so complicated, it's actually frustrating. Like, how do you always know? And I also have to tell them, like, I don't always know, but I can tell you from experience you should do it like this or like this, but I'm not claiming to know it. And that's how you should probably also feel. Like, you have to make the best decision with the information you have at hand, and you eventually have to make a decision and be conscious about it. And I guess that's what you did with the Tormod Script there.
Yeah, it's actually funny with Stefan Schutz. We were testing.
Stefan Schutz, yeah.
Yeah, we were testing the Stoneblade mirror, and we had a few decisions, and I took screenshots after. I'm like, what would you do here and here? And well, I don't remember if that's exactly what he said. Maybe I was just speaking over him. I'm like, this is like so complicated. I have literally no idea what to do. Like it was almost like games of EDH. Basically, it would be like this 10. It would be like turn 10, and we both have a full grip, and I can cast like True Name plus this. Like I've like my hands like 2 True Name, 2 Jace, like a Council's Judgment, a Snapcaster, a Flusterstorm, a Force of Will, and it's like, how do I actually meaningfully sequence everything properly? And I was like thinking, I'm like, this is just like so difficult. That's actually when the top 8 started. I hope I'm not skipping ahead. I was really nervous if I was going to play Stoneblade Mirror, because it's just so hard to know which threats you want to develop. Like sometimes you can put a Batter Skull in play, but I'm like, this is actually meaningfully interact with, like they could just go Plow, play Jace, like versus should I play Snapcaster to try and get that body on the board, try and dig towards an answer to the Jace, or like you also have to consider True Names. Like it's very hard to know which threats you actually want to develop to disrupt them, and it can also be very dependent on what their hand is. Like maybe they have Spell Pierce, maybe they have Plow, so there's just like a lot going on. And also it got really stupid when we had Palace Jailers. I'm like Palace Jailer to Snapcaster, and then he attacked me, he got the trigger. Then I like Palace Jailer on Palace Jailer. Just like luckily it didn't happen to me this weekend. It felt like just so absurd, like what was going on.
Did you bring an actual Monarch token?
No, but I had like tokens, and I just said this is my Monarch token, and like I put it there.
This crown, I'm gonna use this golden crown as my Monarch token.
Yeah, I think I used like an elemental or like a bird or something. Like I have like those arcade post tokens, they're really nice, and I just like said this is my Monarch token, and I just put it on the battlefield. Though my finals opponent, he was playing 2 Jailers main, so he had an actual Monarch token. So I was able to use.
So you got to use that.
Yeah, I was like, can I use this? He was like, yeah, sure, man. I know.
So before we get to the top 8, can you tell us a little bit like about the Swiss, where any interesting interactions or matchups or people you faced, and also in general, like which kind of matchups did you actually play against?
I basically played against a bunch of Ponder decks, but my most interesting, so that's not what, like, my deck is not designed for Ponder mirrors, though it's obviously fine there. It's mostly designed to, like, get, like, the decks that are trying to get free wins, it's trying to get free wins against the decks that are trying to get free wins. Like, that's, that's what my deck is designed to do, sort of. But
Which decks would you consider free wins?
well, not, it's hard to say free win because then you have like pressure to like mono red Stompy is like a very good matchup. Dredge under the London Mulligan rule is like a very. I actually played against Dredge and I lost, but that's because I didn't have the London Mulligan rule, so it's a lot harder to like sculpt my hand. As funny as that sounds,
Hmm.
but like you can obviously lose those matchups, but like mono red Stompy is just supposed to be very good, and I guess that's about it as far as like a black red. I mean, it's just this thing like everybody always says I'm good against black red because you know I'm playing against Eric, but yeah. So it's not like actually a good matchup, but I mean, I just it's well, actually they asked the question, what's the best card in your deck? I'm like, it's hard to know. It depends on the matchup, but the card that I probably win the most when I cast is Tormod's Crypt. Like, so when it's good, it's very good, and it's just nice to have a matchup that's like simple. It's actually so one thing, yeah, when the top eight started, I played against Sneak and Show round one, and I was actually so relieved because I really didn't want to have regrets that I would make any mistakes in the top eight. Because if I played my best and I just got crushed, I would be like, that's fine, I tried my best. So when I was against Show and Tell, I'm like, okay, if I get crushed, I get crushed. I'll just try my best. And
And did you
then
know that Cherry made that comment before the finals that he's playing this deck because it's really good against all the Tundra decks, only to immediately lose
that's
to
what
the Tundra
everybody
deck?
says to me. Like all the years I play Magic, everybody when I was playing Splinter Twin, everyone would say, "Oh, I never lose to Twin." Or like every deck I play, like when I play Bluetron, people are like, "I never." So I don't even I probably didn't even register that comment. Like
The thing
um
is, when people say that and they are actually honest, like, but Cherry was somewhat like joking about it, I think. But
yeah.
when people say, "I have never lost to deck X," what I tell them is, well, then you haven't played enough against it, because like variance Magic works that way. You will eventually like lose every now and then. And if you tell me you haven't lost to that kind of deck, then you really haven't played enough.
Yeah, when a matchup's better for me, it's kind of funny. It's like when you have that insane draft, then you have the pressure to perform. It's kind of like funny. Like you don't want a bad matchup, but if you have a good matchup, I'm like, I don't want to lose a good matchup. So it's kind of I that's so it's kind of funny in that sense. So yeah, if it's a good matchup, you can obviously still lose, but it just means that you're slightly favored in a way, and that's good for you,
So
obviously.
you didn't play any wonky decks. You just played
Um,
straight up legacy decks
There
during
was
this
a
was.
couple interesting moments. Versus 42 AD was definitely the most interesting. I'll give the story quickly. I think. Well, actually, I played against a very weird Grixis Delver deck in round five, or round four. I actually played against three Delver decks in a row to start. I played against Blue Red Delver round two. Then I played against Grixis Delver. It was actually Brandon Dalloway who plays on Moto a lot. He got pretty mana screwed versus me. Like he drew four Underground Seas game one. I'm like, is he playing blue black? I don't know what's going on. But after the game, his hand apparently was like a bunch of bolts. So that's how you win a GP. And then round four, I played against a Grixis Delver opponent. He actually went X1 on day one. So don't laugh at his deck or something. He did really well. I saw after he was like top of the standings. That was his only loss. And I actually won in round five of time against him, which was very nice. Well, I had like a Jitte, so but anyway, so I probably could have won a turn earlier, but I was just being safe. Um, so game one, what happened is I just saw basic swamp. Like he has two Delvers. My hand didn't have removal spells. It was like cantrips, and I just died to two Delvers. Like he has a Thoughtseize, dazed me once, had a Force of Will, and I saw like basic swamp. I'm like, I don't know. I guess Death Shadow probably. Like I saw it pretty similar for all the Delver decks. So I just like decided like for that. Then game two, I found out he was like Grixis Delver, but he has like Colligan's Command, but he had basic swamp and basic island, and he had a Nivmagus Elemental. So I was like, whoa,
Okay.
what's going on? I think I even saw a Snapcaster Mage. So I'm like, whoa, this is like not a normal deck. So then game three, what happened? What was so stressful? I was like super far ahead for a stock Grixis Delverlek. I'm like, okay, they can't do much. Then I had like a true name out basically, and with like a Jitte on it. But then he casted Jace the Mind Sculptor. I'm like, oh my god. And then like, because then that can draw an Edict, and like, so the game got super intense. But he actually faith sealed me a lot of times, which is kind of weird, I guess. Maybe we're close to time. Like he actually might have, like I remember he kept face sealing me, and I was like, okay. Anyway, like I mean, not to sound rude, but I was like, thank God he's not brainstorming because like they draw three cards when because he was like hellbent. He had like one or two cards in hand. I don't know exactly the reasoning, but I definitely remember I was like, oh and so that was a weird deck. And then I played against lands, which it's funny because you know I don't have surgical. They're like, how do you beat lands? And I'm like, I don't like. I'll find a way when I play against it. Well, luckily I played against lands. I found the way. That was definitely the most stressful match. It was only round five, so I didn't like have a lot of pressure at that point. But I was really happy I win. I mean, they had Tabernacle and had like four squires, and they had like a Maze of This, but I just like had to pay four and keep beating down with the 1/2s. It was like pretty ridiculous. Like just for them to get untapped by the Maze and they're just like one power. But like, what else am I gonna do? Like that was my game plan. Also, I remember one time I clicked him in game two, and my goal was to get a punishing fire. Like he tapped one mana to like gamble or something, and it was actually funny. I Tormod's crypted him. I only sided in Tormod's crypt twice because I played Fair Mirrors the whole time against him and Martin. And after the match, he actually said, "How many Tormods do you have?" Like I was lucky to draw my one. I'm like, "I have three," and he's like, "Oh, okay." And anyway, so like I Tormod's crypted him, and then I like because he taps the gamble, discards the life from the loam. I crypt him. I click him. He has and his hand is like double choke and a drop of honey or something like that. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll just pass. He cast a choke and I just beat down with a click. Like, just get. But anyway, that was an exciting game. But against 42 AD, this was actually very interesting game because if you ever played against him on Moto, you know he plays weird decks. Like he just
Does he
plays
play
like the weird.
Storm a lot?
Yeah, like he plays like Pernicious Steeds, Abrupt Decay's main, like 61 cards with multiple tendrils. But
Who
if
would
you're a
do
blue
that?
player, like if you're an else player, that might not sound like a nightmare. When you're playing a blue player, you're like, it's like, what am I even supposed to do in this matchup? I don't even know what's going on whenever you play against him. So when I played against him game one, he was going draw go. Like I recognize his name as like Martin Vonasek. I'm probably mispronouncing
Wait,
that.
wait, wait, wait. Martin is 42 AD.
Yeah, Martin
Like
Vonasek.
I know Martin like quite well from European tournaments. I had no idea he was 42 AD.
Does he play? If the guy plays Storm a lot, I'm like
Yeah, yeah,
99% sure it's
Martin is
him.
very well known for Storm. He might as well have like the entire deck tattooed on his body or something.
Yeah, yeah. So I played against him, and game one, it's a bad matchup game one, but I knew the matchup, so I could sort of mulligan. But my seven was already fine, but it wasn't very good. But I just go like turn three, turn eight, true name, turn four, Jace. The first time he tries to go to combos, turn six, but I have my one click, and he like casts a bunch of rituals, casts the Passion Flames. I click him, his hand's like two Lotus Petals and like and a tendril, so I bought him the tendrils, and he scoops because I guess he just drew like so. But I mean, my hand was like very stacked because I had Jace for a bunch of turns, but it was definitely like a tricky dance. I was actually like playing so slowly against him because I didn't want to mess it up because I knew who he was and like how I probably punted against him on Moto before. So like I remember in our second game I had a Flusterstorm and I was like for 2 minutes thinking, do I Flusterstorm when he was like all bet? I was just like counting. I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, like so that might have been tilting for him. And then in the second game, what happened that was really cool. So I sided in Containment Priest because I have these true names. Aside from being blue to pitch the force and have an extra power, it's basically this threat that's really hard to cast, or Containment Priest that can just flash it in and try and get
Hmm.
like through his like grindy nonsense of trying to tendrils me naturally or whatever.
The old ambush wiper.
Yeah, and also the Tormod scripts were good there. Like I cast the first Tormod script and like abrupt decayed it. I cast the second one, he like pernicious deed. Or 1 second. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
Oh wow, yeah. It sounds like Daniel just had like an amazing tournament. I definitely played around like against Martin a lot, and he definitely has the cards that like get you. He also has like extirpates and stuff,
Yeah,
so it's a little bit of a
that's his claim to
nightmare.
fame, right? The extricates in the sideboard that he used to play. I think he
Yeah,
also we mentioned he also plays Deed, and I think that there's always a discussion about whether he should play Deed in that deck or not. I think he's the only one doing it, but I can imagine it being quite annoying, especially since it like gets rid of all the hate bears, and I think there's nothing you can really do about it.
yeah. It's also really good against the Chalice decks if you end up casting it,
I'm
but
sorry, I'm back.
yeah, no worries. I don't know. So one other thing that you mentioned earlier was like you really wanted to have good matchups, and that's basically my mindset now going forward. Like I've played Delver at a bunch of GPs, and it just felt like very medium. Or I played it at SCGs too. Like I played it at SCG Syracuse, and I went like I started off 6-0. It was amazing. I was like, oh, maybe I can get my first like 9-0, and then it just fell off the rails. I went 6-3, and it just felt like Delver. Every single time you play Delver, it's just like you fight really hard because there's like no good matchups left. So that's like part of the reason why I decided to play depths is because like I felt very confident against certain matchups. Like I felt pretty confident against Miracles and against the Chalice decks, which I thought like those two decks are going to be very good. So I thought it's good to have some good matchups at the top. So that's basically going to be my plan going forward for Legacy is like know what you want to attack in the metagame and then pick a spot. Like I'm done playing like 50-50 decks. Like it just like doesn't really appeal to me. And I do think like there are times when Delver's going to be good again. Like for example, I think on Magic Online there was a period where I thought Depths was insane, but then all the combo decks started coming out and they were good against Depths. So then I thought Depths was bad, but then Delver was good because Delver was good against the combo decks. So like it's going to depend on the metagame, but like I'm just done playing like 50-50 decks is how I feel about Legacy right now.
Oh yeah, one before I go back to the Containment Priest story to end it quickly was or the 42AD story like of our weird game too. Yeah, I played a lot of Grixis Delver like posted Death's Right ban. Even a lot of pros were saying like it's the best deck and stuff. And the two main issues I had with it, one I found I was losing to Wasteland a lot, which kind of sounds weird, but like I do leagues and like usually once or twice a league I just lost a match to Wasteland. And another thing is you just didn't have enough one drops. Like that would have obviously been death, right? You don't have enough one drops to leverage everything you're trying to do, like your dazes and your spell pierces. That's where like the quad angler list helps a lot because you can try and use angler as a pseudo one drop. Like they wasteland you can cast angler to punish that, and you have all these anglers to back up your like minor disruption to truly be backbreaking. But anyway, back to the containment priest story, which is kind of weird. So anyway, like he was like abrupt decaying my stuff, pernicious deeding my stuff. Anyway, so I cast Containment Priest, and basically, so one turn one turn I went to like Snapcaster Brainstorm, but he extirpated my Brainstorm, so he saw that I had two priests in my deck. He saw my deck list. Then like a couple turns later, I cast the Containment Priest, and or like he ended up decaying it anyway. So at like one turn, he thought seizes me, he sees my hand, passes to me. I take a draw step, I think, and I pass. And basically, what had happened was he knew I had a True Name in hand and some counter spells. So I basically always cast a True Name because like there's no reason I wouldn't tap out. But the only card that I would have is either Snapcaster Mage, but I don't have Brainstorm, so I'd just play the True Name because I lost all my Brainstorms. Or I had Containment Priest, and he had an Extirpate and had a Containment Priest in the yard, and he ended up not extirpating the Containment Priest. I mean, I don't know if it would have changed the match, but he definitely said like he was thinking of extirpating my Containment Priest, and I actually did have one in hand. That's why I passed and I cast it, which was I thought that was kind of like a really weird and funny spot. Like that was the only draw where I wouldn't cast the True Name. Because if he plays against me and like I'm not gonna not play my True Name. I'm not gonna just like try and go against him. Like,
Yeah.
so, I'm trying to think if there was any other weird moments in the event. In the Swiss, there wasn't really. I played against an Esper Blade player who's playing Jace Vryn's Prodigy. That's just kind of a card I like a lot. It's not really a good story, I guess. And
But how did you feel when you eventually, I guess when you got to like 13 and 0, you knew you were locked for top 8 at that point?
then I just didn't want to make any mistakes in the top eight because I'm like, I play a lot of Magic. And, like, actually, this is one thing about one-ofs. I used to find, like when you stress out about a one-of, I found I'm like, wait, after tournaments, I'm never like stressing about what one-of to play. I just stress out about one or two times I misplayed. So that's why I don't like really stress out about my deck list that much. Obviously, it's important, but I found post-tournaments, I'm never like, oh, I wish my deck list was better. Well, obviously, it has to be like not terrible, but so that's why I'm usually mostly focused on just not making small mistakes. So when I thought I was like locked for the top eight, well, number one, at those rounds, usually when I'm winning, I'm like, okay, what am I doing right that I can reproduce my wins? And I was like, sort of like, well, not much. I'm just sort of like, I just need to kind of get lucky because I don't really have an extra power level over them. My opponents, like, they're not playing bad, like if they're playing reasonable. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll just try and play my best and win. But so it's definitely stressful in that sort of way. I'm like, I can't really do anything broken. Like I don't have this broken deck. I just need to keep like hoping it just comes together and I win. Because like when I would think, I'm like, man, this weekend would be like so hard to reproduce, or like it's not like I'm like now I want to go to another legacy GP. Like they're saying about Latin, I'm like, no, I don't think I want to go for or at least for a few weeks I probably wouldn't want to play because like winning that many games in a row, it definitely just felt like I was like that would be very hard to reproduce. And then when I was in the top eight, I was like, I just don't want to make any mistakes because then I would regret that. Like as long as I just didn't make mistakes, then I would there would be nothing to regret.
And you played an amazing game in the semifinals. Actually, an amazing match in the semifinals against Gerard Fabiano. We didn't get to see it or watch it, but our friend Anorak Das was actually live tweeting the entire match, like in very good quality, like very detailed, turn by turn, actually. And I was glued to my Twitter feed because I kept refreshing, updating. I wanted to see what was happening in your match. And I think your match might have lasted, I don't know, forever and like went really deep. I think one of the matches even finished on turn 30 or something. Like I remember Anorak tweeting that he thinks that like one of the players might act like I think Gerard might have almost stacked in the second game when he had like I don't know like 8 cards left in the library and almost no win conditions, and then he got you with the mentor. That must have been like an absurd match. Did it feel that way to you as well?
I should have looked at his library size. I just remember he Teferi ulted me, like exiled all my permanents, and I just scooped, and I didn't look at his library size. But I guess he drew so many cards, maybe he. So yeah, I don't remember because I just maybe he had him in. But no, I remember in game two what happened is at the beginning. So game one was kind of cool because I got a force of will of plow, which maybe it doesn't sound like that's.
Sorry to interrupt you. That's something I wanted to ask you about as well, because that's something not like to phrase it for people. You played turn two Stoneforge and your opponent for Batterskull, and your opponent starts to plowshed it, your Miracle's opponent, and you force filled that, and that was like quite surprising to me because that's not something a lot of people I think would do. But from then on, I felt like the game developed a lot about that Stoneforge because your opponent had to. Or, maybe you want to tell that story but I was wondering whether this was like a decision you made based on having played that matchup infinite times, where you felt like, okay, I want to make this match play this exact way, and then I'm gonna be ahead.
Well,
Like
basically, what
five turns later.
happened was I brainstormed on turn one if or like ponder, like I knew the top card in my library was bad, and my hand was like Island, Plains, Jitte, Batterskull, because I already searched True Name, Snapcaster, Force of Will, and basically if I didn't Force of Will, I first of all we had open deck list, so I knew I had triple Spell Pierce main. So if I didn't Force of Will, it would be really hard to use my mana past that point, because number one, I can't cast True Name, I can't even cast Snap, like cast Jitte does nothing, and my top card was bad. It was like a Plower. I can't remember exactly, but I just remember it was like not good. Like it wouldn't let me do anything. So I just wanted to keep using my mana to keep developing. And like I'm like, okay, if he has a second plow, that's not great. But also it's gonna be hard to use the Force of Will without him having the spell pierce up. And also like this way, for example, I can put Batterskull in play. Then if he has Snapcaster Plow, by that point I can have Jitte on my Stoneforge. And like if I draw Plow, which is like the worst card in my deck probably, then I can just plow the Snapcaster and beating was the thing. So I sort of like so I can keep using all my mana every turn to like try and put him on the back foot. And but it was mostly because like I knew my top card was bad and I didn't have anything to do with my mana anyway. So that was sort of why I did it. But definitely felt good when it worked because I'm like, yeah, nice to work. But and also it's like, what am I trying to beat? Like they go better because they have accumulated knowledge. I'm kind of the onus is kind of on me to end the game, especially in game one, in a
So
sense.
you're the beatdown, pretty much.
Actually, I had a nice game against Gerard in the Swiss. We played like round 12 or 13. I think I was his or 11 or something. I was actually his only loss in the Swiss. So it's the end of his turn, and I've been Dillian him, and he has like all his mana up. It's like 4 lands, like a tundra, 2 islands, a fetch land. I click him. He says, "Okay, resolves." I look at his hand. It's like Snapcaster, Plow, Spell Snare, Counterbalance, Force of Will, Terminus, and I take the Plow. And like it's like he obviously didn't want to plow it, but and then I ended up killing him with the click because I'm like that hand is just so stacked. My hand's like Jitte and dumb stuff and like Council's Judgment. Like I can't out, and I don't have like good top decks in my deck compared to him. So I just take that and I just he ends up having to like being awkward spot. Like he can't draw like a plow right away or like we start fighting over the click and I just kill him with the click. So that definitely was kind of a cool game in a way. And I was trying to anyway. So yeah, in the second game, what happened was he mulliganed to 5 and he was on the play, so he was like down 3 cards in a sense. But basically, what happened is like around turn 5 or 6, my hand was like my board. I had like 2 islands and a tundra, and my hand was like Council's Judgment, Palace Jailer, like 2 or 3 counter spells, and he had like 1 or 2 cards. I can't remember exactly. And I even had a random 1/2 Stoneforge. I even let him he counsels my Batterskull because I like tapped outers for whatever, like maybe Snapmaster Ponder or something. And I was like, I could force a willed it, but I'm like, I don't even care. I have this Palace Jailer I want to protect. Basically, what happened is I think I drew like 2 or 3 islands in a row, and then like he drew a counterbalance. He had a Teferi. I tried to counterspell it, but then he blind flipped the Force of Will, and then like I kept I like I think like 2 to 5 turns where I probably could have cast Jailer for free, and I couldn't. I was like I kept drawing like islands and flusterstorms, and it was like I was like, oh man, if I can't even win on the multiply, I'm like this was like my free win. Like I just like had it all ready. Like I just need that one land, or if I don't draw a land, at least I could draw like spells like True Name. Like I remember I cast True Name, but then he verdicted it away. Like it just you had that opening for like so many turns, and I'm like now I got to go to game 3. So that was definitely very stressful. But then I was like, okay, it's game 3. I'll just try again, but it's gonna be tough. So yeah.
Yeah, that game like I mentioned, like it really went on forever, and you said you eventually ended up losing to the Teferi Ultimate because I think from Anorak's coverage it looked like you had already lost to the mentor and the
I don't
tokens, but maybe that came on top as well.
I don't think he actually even cast a mentor against me because I remember in game 3 I sided out all my plows. So maybe it was another maybe it was like it was against somebody else because I actually don't think he cast unless I need to read coverage. Maybe it was against like a Grixis guy or something, or maybe
Okay,
I'm confusing it because I actually remember usually I keep in 2 to 3 plows against Miracles, but I actually cut all 4 against him
I
because I
think the
just
most likely scenario is that Anorak lied to us
or maybe he
because he
just
does have 2 Monastery Mentor on the sideboard. I
yeah
saw.
I know I saw the open deck list. Um,
No, I watched the match. He definitely didn't have mentor in game two. or in the semifinals. He probably had it in the quarterfinals against Grixis Delver.
Yeah,
Oh,
maybe
that might have been it then.
yeah, maybe
Maybe
I
that
could,
was it.
yeah, maybe I could have paid attention to if he decked, because I
If
don't
only
remember.
there was a video feed that we could look into.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, because maybe he could have decked out and I could have won the second game. I don't know how many cards he had in the library. I thought his library was large. Like, it was sort of, he just exiled all my permanents, and I think his library was large. He mulliganed to 5. He didn't really draw that many cards. He just had that random Teferi. So I think his library was actually pretty big. Like, he didn't cast that many cantrips. He kind of just randomly played a Teferi, got it to 8. And then when it was like at 8, he ultimated it, and then he like exiled all my permanents. And like, he didn't, like, he had, so I think he had a lot of cards, but maybe I could have tried to mill him. I didn't look as, but I remember, think his library was kind of big, but I can't remember exactly. Um, yeah.
And when you ended up going to the finals, did you feel like relief? Did you feel like you were facing a good matchup in Death and Texas?
Well, so what happened was first, I didn't know exactly. I think I thought I saw the guy playing earlier in his Death and Taxes. It's actually kind of funny because I wanted to ask for a split, but I didn't want to say, "Can I see the deck list?" And I see it, I'm like, okay, I want to split because then it's like a bad matchup. I made that mistake one time at a local tournament. It was like a 5K, and I was playing against Merfolk in the finals, and I said, "Hey, judge, who's on the play?" They're like, "Your opponent." I'm like, "Hey, want to split?" And they're like, "No, screw you." And anyway, so I didn't want to like that, so I didn't really know exactly what he was, even though I was sitting there. Like I was just like, if I play, I'm gonna have open deck lists, and I wasn't really thinking of that. But anyway, so I'm like, okay, do you want to split? Because just to show how much I like to split. My story said a tournament where 3 gets a free sandwich. I used to be when I was 2. I'm like, you want to split the sandwich? So I just like not. So I was just like, and I also thought like if I win the Grand Prix, like we play it out for who wins. I'd be happy anyway. If I lose, then I wouldn't be happy. So that way, like it just evens out in that way. So that's why I wanted to split. But my opponent, basically, well, I said you want to split, and then there's like a big judge call because he had a bunch of questions, and we were like walking away from the table, and then he says, okay, look, I need pro points, so we can split, but you have to concede to me so that like I'm like, okay, no, we'll just play it out. I don't want to say anything else because the judge call like went on for a while. Like I could have said we can split the prize and then we can play it out, but like there was like a bunch of judges and it was all pretty tired, so I was like, okay, I'll just play it out. And so I was like, Death and Taxes is usually like people would say it's a good matchup. I think it's like maybe a good matchup, but we saw the deck list and he didn't have any cue cards. Usually when you see a Death and Taxes list, like you see like one Bright Link, one Mirroring Crusader, one Restoration Angel, one Sarah Avenger, like all these cards that I don't particularly care about them. They can obviously kill you, but they're just like not that scary. When I saw his list, there was none of these cards. It was like 4 Revoker, 2 Jailer, like in deflect spots. I was like, what? Where's the dumb one? I was like, his list was like a like very lean. It was like when I said I'm like, this is like absurd. This is like looks like a lean Stoneblade killing machine. He was like, I beat 4 Stoneblade players this weekend. Um, anyway, so his deck list definitely looked a lot scarier than most. He even had 3 councils. A lot of people play 2, and he just didn't have any. If you see that his deck list, he just didn't have anything like that you can just ignore easily. Like all his cards were kind of live against you. So it definitely was sort of stressful. But then like game 1 and game 2, I kind of just equipped True Jitte onto a True Name, and I guess I won. So actually, game 1 was close. He had a
I
Sword of Fire
guess
and
I
Ice.
won.
He had a Sword of Fire and Ice, and like I didn't draw like a plow yet, and so I couldn't really interact with it well. But I pondered, I shuffled, and I blind drew a Council's Judgment. So that's how you win. We would have had a sword game, but also so there would have been other ways to interact. But I basically couldn't interact with the sword, and I was getting kind of like squeezed. He had like 2 Stone Forges, but then like so I exile the sword, and then I can just play the True Name. The True Name can block once the sword is gone. It can block everything. Then I could just like equip stuff, and then like game 1 he scooped, and then game 2 was kind of cool too. Like he played like a jailer and like a revoker and a mom and all this, but I just put like True Name, put a Jitte on it, like remove your revoker was like Ursa.
Was
I
pretty
think it forced the
straightforward, right?
revoker. Yeah, forced the revoker. Like, and then so I was very relieved when I won. I was like, okay, it's over finally. I can stop having to get absurd luck every round. So
So after you got the prize, how did you actually celebrate that night? Did you feel like super exhausted? I think I saw a picture of you and Bob at the Niagara Falls.
yeah, first one of my friends, I forget who exactly. Maybe it was probably Hans Jacob. Said we should go to the falls and take a picture there. We actually hadn't seen the falls yet because we were just playing match all day,
Playing.
and we're like we should see it before we leave. So then yeah, I just went to a restaurant, the Griffin Gastro Pub, and it was a really nice restaurant with like Anirog and Jarvis and a bunch of legacy people. There's probably like 8 to 12 people there. And then after we just drove home because we didn't have another night at the hotel. Like I could have added one, but it's just like a 1.5 hour drive home, so we just drove home. It was actually funny when we were passing the border. The guy said, "So did you win any prizes?" I showed the trophy and I said, "I won this," and then he said, "Okay, you can go through."
You may pass. You have earned it.
And
You
yeah,
brought honor to Canada.
so yeah, and then so yeah, that was basically the tournament, and yeah, so it was pretty good. I was lucky to dodge Edgar in the top eight. He apparently got Brainstorm locked against Crisis Control, which is a good matchup for him, and then he died to that. So yeah.
So, how would you generally say, like, to give us like a short overview of how you view the legacy metagame right now? Like, what would you say? What are like the decks to beat? Like, if you want to win, which decks should people be looking into if they want to like run it back and also become as like the Daniel, the guy who wins the legacy GP at 18 years?
Well, usually when I look at all the decks in the metagame, like I kind of look at it like what's doing powerful stuff consistently, and like I see Mono Red Stompy. It's obviously less good against the Blade decks. I like Depths a lot. I played the deck there. I think it's like pretty good. I think Miracles is obviously good too, and like I think basically most decks are pretty good. I'm just trying to see exactly going one through one. Like a lot of the decks, I just don't play it that much. So like decks like Elves, Stompy, Storm, Sneak and Show. It's like hard for me death and taxes, like it's hard for me to evaluate the power level. I just know from playing against it. And also Legacy is a weird format to test in because sometimes like you're favored against like one build of a deck, but people have a different build, so it's really hard to actually test like you're like, okay, I think I'm favored, then you play against like a completely different build of the same deck. It's like Elves or Show and Tell or something, or even Storm like Tess or Ant. So it can be hard to test in regards to that. And like I don't think there's like a obvious best deck, at least for me right now. Like most of the decks felt like similar power level. Like you can't really just like do something broken. I know like Dark Ritual players probably disagree. They're always like Dark Ritual is just the best card, or so maybe that's the best thing. I think Dredge is like very good. Like those like the graveyard people seem to dominate a lot. Eric Landon and
The graveyard people.
yeah, Elf Kid, Aurum, and Eric Landon. They seem to like win a lot with like Dredge and Black Red. So those seem to be very strong. I like Blue Red Palace a lot. Like not a lot of people play it, but the Blue Red Prowess deck seems to be like pretty good though. I don't know. I don't want
But
to give people
overall,
bad advice.
overall, it feels like it's been a pretty successful weekend for Blue White Stoneblade because in the Legacy MCQ, which like is the new name for a PTQ, uh, it also took the first place and sends 12-year-old Milan Biani. I think you guys remember the guy's name.
Yeah,
Yeah, Milan Bayana. He
I
was
think
13, and
Bayana.
it was funny because like I was talking to Daniel. Like literally, he introduced himself, or Milan introduced himself to Daniel because they were like, building their deck before the MCQ, and they're like, "Oh, I'm also playing Blue White Stoneblade." And then the kid goes on to win the MCQ, and Daniel goes on to win the GP. So they basically blessed each other by like becoming friends and like helping each other build their decks right before the
well, yeah. He
MCQ.
said after he won the MCQ, he said, "Oh, if you top eight the GP, we should test for the Pro Tour together." I'm like, "Well, we'll see about that first."
And then
I
it
was just
actually
gonna.
happened.
I was almost gonna make a stupid comment. Like in German, it's like a custom that brings you good luck. Like if somebody is lucky, you have to rub them, and
Yeah.
then you will. Like, for example, like a chimney sweep is supposed to be like a person that brings you good luck, but we are like really weird to like tell people to rub like on a 12 or 13 year old. No, anyway, that's not what I.
Wow, really went there, Julian.
No, I didn't.
Right, you said you wouldn't. You only discussed it. You talked about it.
But yeah, it seems like the deck is pretty well positioned after having been like shunned by the legacy community for a very long time. Like I remember during the heydays of Miracles, people were making fun of her, and me, including me, and not even fun, like actually saying that Stoneforge is pretty much unplayable outside of Death and Taxes. But now it's coming back big time, and it's coming back so big time that you actually make me wanna try that deck. Like it's almost the exact opposite of the kind of Magic I enjoy playing, but like looking at the deck, and I've played my fair share of like Stoneford decks, but that was like almost 10 years ago. And maybe I do want to look into it. I don't know, Bob. Are you gonna stay true to your Dark Depth experience? I think yours did pretty
I'm
well.
like you, Julian. I hate playing mid-range decks. I love playing like aggro decks, combo decks. Sometimes, if it's really broken, I'll play like a hard control deck like Miracles. But in general, I like to play like to one end of the spectrum. That's what I'm good at. I'm not really good at analyzing board states. I'm good at like executing the same game plan over and over again. So I'm probably not going to play that deck. But it is good to just like get better at Magic. It's good to play lots of different decks and try different things. So I would say it's also worth like learning the enemy as it were.
Yeah, I was basically thinking because like was the London Mob rule, everybody's playing all these Chalice decks, so I basically was just playing it because you have all this inbuilt protection versus the Chalice decks. So, and then you just try your best versus the other decks. When I find I play other fair blue decks, I have a lot more difficulty versus Chalice. So that's basically why I was playing this. But yeah, that was sort of my thinking in regards to how it's placed in the meta. It's more like I don't want to lose to Chalice, and I don't feel very good against Chalice with the other blue deck. So that's sort of why I would play this deck and where I see it.
And you would probably continue playing it for now.
Yeah, I'd have to see. After this weekend, though, I probably wouldn't want to play it for a few weeks. I feel like it's impossible to win
target on
games
set.
after
I
this
saw
game.
you streaming and you were playing against like Grixis Control and they had like Knight's Whisper.
I won that match though, but I lost to Eldrazi post, so I was 3-1 when I stopped. But yeah.
Yeah.
But it was actually funny. The first match I streamed, I almost cast Ponder into Chalice. Twitch chat stopped me. Like I was not. I was like the first match after the GP because I was just really tired. The next day. Yeah.
So where can people actually find your streaming?
My Twitch, it's like twitch.tv and then it's /D and then it's my last name Goetschel, which is spelled Goetschel. But you can also find me on Twitter. My name's like Gull-Dupat, or it's Daniel Goetschel. It's the same way it would be spelled when they post a deck list, and then I post the link there too. Yeah.
Awesome. So Daniel, thanks a lot for coming on today, telling us all about your deck, your journey thus far as a Magic player. And from everything I've heard today and your dedication to not only Legacy but Magic in general, I can really only say first place at the Mythic Championship is 50,000 euros or dollars and might have your name on it. If not this time, then maybe next. From everything I've heard today, I think we are here to hear a lot more from you in the future.
Yeah, I've been trying to get Daniel to team with me for an SCG Open for a while because I just feel like he's this secret player that nobody knows about that's super amazing at Magic and nobody knows, but the secret's finally out of the bag. So congrats, man.
Thank you. Yeah.
Are you eventually gonna team with Bob? It's a big wish.
It's usually just because I don't travel very much. This was just 2 hour drive. I usually just play the Magic Online events, and as I say value, usually I'm just always I don't really want to travel because I would do that when I have a real job more, and I can just
Bob
play the Moto events.
I was gonna say Bob is actually gonna pick you up and drive you there, but then I realized that everybody keeps talking about how Bob is trying to score rights, and I don't know.
Whoa.
I'll
that's
see.
what people say, Bob.
Well, yeah, I'll see. I might do some SCGs, but it's mostly usually my goal was to qualify for the Pro Tour sort of, so I just wanted to play the PTQs anyway more than Star City Opens and that kind of stuff. Just wanted to, and yeah, it's just a lot easier. Also when you scrub out, I play a lot, so I lose a lot. So I know that when I play most events, I'm probably not going to do well. So it's kind of a lot of dedication to travel to an event. If I go to an event, I'm going to expect to not do well. But then if it's just a small event, I'd rather just play a Moto thing, so I can easily O2 scrub out, play another thing or whatever. But yeah.
Okay, so from our side, we're wishing you the best of luck in Barcelona. It's always cool to see the person or the people who qualified through the Legacy GP and how they're going to do at the Pro Tour. Traditionally, a lot of pro players have told me, the people who come in through a Legacy GP are not exactly the most successful ones on the Pro Tour yet, but I think you could definitely make a difference with regards to that.
I think Javier got onto the Pro Tour that way too, so at least Javier Dominguez.
Oh, he did?
I believe.
I know that he's really big into Legacy, and he's actually the creator of Cephalid Breakfast. If that rings a bell,
I think he got his. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he got started into competitive Magic with the GP Paris win, but I'm not sure exactly. But it maybe did too.
Cool. So, thanks a lot for coming on today. If you guys want to support the show, we know, we already were talking about it at the last episode, we now have a Patreon. So if you want to support the running of the show and maybe also earn some awesome perks that we have, check out patreon.com/everydayeternal. Thus far, we have 3 Patreons who are supporting us. If we can get to 20, if you guys want to help out, even if it's just $1 a month, if we can get to 20 in the first month, we actually get well, it's not a super significant bonus from Patreon, but they offered it. So if you want to support the running of the show that way and make sure that everything is paid for, and eventually also we can maybe afford, I'm actually looking into better microphones for the cast. That would be super sweet. or even buy rights for Bob, so he doesn't have to like and be like, hey, can I go there? You can check that out. Patreon.com/everydayeternal. We are still working on getting back the Twitter account because we actually have a pretty big Twitter account, but nobody has the password, and we were in negotiations with Twitter to get that back. Otherwise, you probably found this through itsjulian.com where the podcast is hosted. For me, it's 1:16 in the morning and I have to work tomorrow, so I think we're gonna call it a day now. Bob, do you want to add anything? Also, by the way, big shout outs to Anurag for live tweeting the top 8. It was really, really amazing to hear that. So give him a follow. He's at ANSI104 on Twitter. He's also streaming a lot, and I really, really enjoyed his coverage. So good job, Anurag.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. He's going to try to do more of that stuff in the future. I was talking to him today, and he was like, I don't have any buys, so maybe I'll just do coverage from now on. But yeah, I don't really have any thing to add. Again, congrats, Daniel. You had an amazing weekend. It was amazing being there, and I really enjoyed seeing you succeed. So yeah, super happy about it all.
Thank you.
Awesome. So that's it for tonight, and see you again on the next podcast in something like 2 weeks. Bye bye.